Number one, there's a lot of people that are doing this right. I stay away from this because of our philosophy, but there are people that are doing this right. I know there's going to be a lot of hate on this video, especially for people that are like that do this, like, and I don't want this to be taken out of context. It's just when we hear somebody who read my book, who like wants to bank with their policy, wants to do certain things, and then they have their money in something like this, it makes me sick because I genuinely feel bad for this person, and that's why we're making this video. Hey everyone, my name is Caleb Guilliams. Welcome to the BetterWealth YouTube channel, and I'm making this video. It's actually a special video because I got featured in the Insurance Pro blog, which if you're not familiar with the Insurance Pro blog, you should check them out at theinsuranceproblog.com. And Brandon and Brantley break this down. They've been doing this for a very long time, and they do an incredible job. If you're into insurance, if you're one of the weird people that love life insurance, or you want to really understand how the numbers work, these guys do a phenomenal job. I'm a fan of their work, and I actually, being someone who got into this industry at a young age, I was looking for anyone and everybody who would be doing published things. And they both had a podcast. I listened to it. I look up to both of them greatly. And so when I heard that they did a podcast about me, I'll be honest, the first initial reaction was probably not good, because I'm like, these guys, if they're doing a podcast on me, that probably means they're picking something that I said apart. And then when I actually went to their podcast and blog, which I'll link below, I saw that it was the YouTube video that I put on Index Universal Life, where I actually unlisted, meaning I took it off where you couldn't search it. Like if you go and try to search this, you're not going to come up with it. I made the mistake of thinking I took it offline, but unlisting means if you have the link, you can still watch it. And so if you listen to their podcast, someone sent them the link of that video, and they watched it, and I was a episode for them, a 51-minute episode of for them, or I at least provided some of the content for them to use. And so I'm making this video because I want to give you context. Number one, I have learned multiple things from this, and I also want to be proactive in how I approach this. I don't want to overthink this, but I also, if you know me, you know that I truly want to do right by you. I truly want to be a source of truth, and whenever I'm misleading, or whenever I'm not that, I'm going to be proactive and tell you that, because I don't want to be someone that is just a fighter, or I don't want to be someone that just pretends it never happens. And I kind of have this idea of like, I don't want to do that. It's late at night. The reason it's late at night is I don't want to go to bed before I'm done making this video. Just a little bit about me. So the context of this video is I had somebody who approached me and was familiar with my book, loved what we did, and just said that they actually got a contract with somebody. They were doing this for about 6 months, and they were contributing to it, and it was an Index Universal Life, and he wanted to know, just like, he had different questions. And since I would never make a recommendation on the internet for anything or over the phone, I just was like, okay, why don't I look at it? And I'll be the first to say that I have a little bit of context with Index Universal Life, but it's very biased. It's very anti-Index Universal Life, mainly because of the people that I've learned from. And I've just seen I've firsthand experienced a lot of bad things, which they say in the blog, and they make a really good point. Just because I have a couple experiences doesn't make anything bad. It's me being biased. And so anyways, with that, and then looking at this contract, and you'll see one of the criticisms that they have is both Dan and I both use the word illustration and contract. They're both different. An illustration is like before you get, working with someone, you can get an illustration that's, not a contract. A contract is when it's between you and the insurance company. This was actually his contract that he sent over. And so I made the mistake of mixing that up, and it was not what he thought it was. And it was not designed well. And so I made the mistake, and I made one. And then this is like the summary for the people that don't want to watch the whole video. I made the mistake of taking that contract, taking my biases, and then making a video and making blanket statements and showing my bias, but coming across like I was unbiased. I don't think I came across unbiased, but coming across like I was an authority on the subject. And for that, you'll notice I did email them, and I'm going to include the email down below. Was totally wrong, and it was wrong of me to post that, even though I did unlist it. I unlisted it because I have a good friend of mine who I just want to finish my thought. So it was wrong of me to post that, and I just thank them for the work that they're doing, and also just thank them for making this. It was humbling. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't love listening to it, but it was good for me, and I'm gonna learn a ton. I'm 24 years old. I'm gonna learn a ton as we go on. The reason I unlisted this video is I have a good friend in the industry and who saw this video and just called me and said, "Hey, Caleb, like I know your heart. I know where you're coming from. I think you're missing some things." And he actually he saw this coming apparently. So he's like, I think you should highly consider taking it down. And so I took his advice because I have a ton of respect for him, and I unlisted it when I should have taken it down. I unlisted it, and my goal was to have other people like him, my friend who reached out to me on the show, talking about an unbiased index universal life and whole life, because I want this channel to be a channel of education. I want this to be a value. And so that's still going to happen. I'm getting a little bit more, and I'm getting a little bit more motivation to get this video out sooner rather than later. Anyways, I also in the email invited Brandon and Brantley to come on to just share more about this topic, and then also the pros and cons of our industry, because there's a lot of miseducation out there. So without further ado, I want to give you, so you guys have a little bit of context. I want to jump into what they're saying, but before I do that, I will actually want to show you my screen, and you can see that on LinkedIn, I actually posted this, and so the YouTube video is not currently, it's unlisted right now. And I'm keeping it unlisted mainly because the Insurance Pro Blog did this video. I'm doing this video. I want people to have context because I was way out of line. And I think if you watch the whole video, you'll see, I think people can see the heart that I'm coming in, and maybe not. But anyways, I said, I got some flack for this video. This was before this. Now it's truly true. And then I give the context, and pretty much this person that came to me, had zero cash value in the first couple of years. If you're new to life insurance, a lot of permanent life insurance can be set up in a poor way that doesn't give you a lot of cash value. If you know what you're doing, both on the index universal life side and the whole life side, you can have cash rich plans. And had a very expensive no lapse rider. It cost $250 a month on a $10,000 policy. And so I saw that 30% of that money was going to a no lapse rider. The general ledger was lapsing after year 20, and I think the worst thing was hearing this person coming to me and hearing their goals and then seeing their plan, and it just became super super clear that they were not in alignment. And so I said on LinkedIn, I said, overall, I would love to have a dialogue because I don't fall into the camp of one being bad or or the another being good. The reason I have this is there's this statement that's made is there's no deals in the insurance company. Like you can't, for those of you that say one is better than the other, you have to understand that it's just math, and we can't, again, people like myself will make a video, it'll be taken out of context, and it's just it very much is me bashing on index universal life. You can make a 25-minute video bashing on whole life, and I'm going to get into that because the Insurance Pro Blog did a really good job analyzing that. So anyways, I want you to know that, yes, am I biased? 100%. And I am committed to learning more. I even said, for Brandon, and Brantley that I'm going to be listening to more of their podcasts at IUL, because I truly want to be informed, and I want to do a better job. And I think I've learned quite a bit. And so I'm going to go into the blog and just break down real quick what they obviously I'm not going to cover everything, but the first thing that I want to note is they put me in the infinite banking camp, which it's true. I've interviewed Nelson Nash. A lot of my mentors are pro infinite banking. You won't hear me saying infinite banking a ton, mainly because infinite banking has a lot of flaws, maybe not with the concept itself or what Nelson wrote, but a lot of people that are teaching it teach it wrong. And so I 100% agree with what they're saying in their podcast, by the way. There's a lot of problems with the quote unquote infinite banking concept. And I'm aware of that. And I also, that's why I don't necessarily brand under that. So with context there, I mentioned in the video that index universal life, or universal life, is in the 80s when it really was from the 70s, and that was a mistake. I also talk about conservative. I use the phrase that I don't know necessarily. I don't know if I use this exact phrase, but pretty much like whole life insurance is more conservative than index universal life. And I made the mistake of like insurance companies where, as a matter of fact, if you actually look at insurance companies in general, they're both conservative, and they do a really good job laying out how pretty much you look at Northwestern Mutual and you look at a universal life insurance like Pacific Life that uses universal life, that a lot they're like invested in the same things. And so they're like, well, you could almost make the argument that universal life is more conservative because they have more cash on reserves. They make a really good point here. And I'm not going to try to justify in this video. So then the other thing is universal life can change, whole life somehow cannot. I made this idea that, there's so many levers that can change in an index universal life policy. And it's my understanding that statement is super general. It can be misleading, and there's some truth to that. And that's the point is, we have to be really careful of half truths. And my video had a lot of half truths in it. And what they said is, and they're totally true, is whole life can change too. Like dividends can decrease. That's why there's a guaranteed column. Like dividends have been decreasing because of insurance rates or dividend rates. So it's just like, that's a really good point. And that's noted. Then they talk about, I talk about contract versus illustration. I already mentioned this. It was I misspoke. It was actually a contract, but I said multiple times illustration. That what they said was a really good analysis. And then I talk about my personal experience, which you just have to be careful. Pros and cons. You could have an amazing experience with universal life. Does that make it great? No. It's again, stop taking your biases and putting it on the industry. That's what I did across the board. Term insurance can be any price. They do a really good job breaking that down and really the art and the science between how it works. And while it can increase, it's misleading for me to say blanket statement that index universal life can hike insurance costs up to anywhere. Like that was a misleading statement that I made. And same thing with that the insurance company can change their mind. That's the same kind of concept. Lapse, no lapse. I'm not going to show you the contract because that would be wrong across the board. So I can't do that. But I wish you could see in multiple areas the word lapse got highlighted. And I think this is where if you take a step back, I go, and this is, I'm including like a 2-minute summary before this clip, so you just get a little bit of context of our video. I don't want to be a part of something that has a potential of lapse. Again, that's my bias. That doesn't make it wrong. And in most cases, I would say if you have someone that's doing this properly, it's working with the right company that's setting, they said this multiple times in their podcast. The problem is not setting up the policy correctly. And there's a whole lot of life insurance that is not set up properly that is garbage too. It's mainly because of a lack of knowledge of setting this up. And cap rates, they did a really good job breaking down the cap rates. And I thought that was really good. And then, I mean, they use some really strong language at the end. And I have to say, I took this pretty, I mean, at first it was like, man, like I was frustrated because I'm like, I was frustrated that I had to hear through one of my friends who told me that this dropped. And then when I looked back on this whole thing, I became super, super grateful that people like these guys are willing to speak truth and are willing to hold people like me accountable, because that's what's going to keep this industry. I'm not going to say it's going to keep this industry great, because I think you can make the argument that this industry is not great because there's not a lot of people like this. And so that's why I'm making this video, because I want you guys to have context of where I went wrong. I said this in the video that I sent them. I'm going to share this. So I pretty much put this in the description below, and you could even see this was unlisted, and it only has 140 views. So I, I'm not, by all means, I'm getting this out of the way because I'm going to continue to create content. I even have a podcast where I talk about the criticism statue and how not to be afraid of criticism. And I also say I don't feel like this is criticism like at my character. It's criticism on my my information on this, and so I'm making that right. But I'm not gonna lie, it did hurt, and I also am like super super grateful that they did this. And so I pretty much said like I thank them so much for their post. You can read it here, and gave them a video, and then really shared with them the goal, invited them to come on the show, and again want to elevate, rise the tide as it relates to the industry that we're in. And so they got a 4-minute 41-second video from me, and just pretty much a shorter version of this. So again, I want to thank you so much for your support. I want to thank you so much for your feedback. The reason I unlisted this video originally was feedback from people that watch the show, and so I appreciate that. I'm going to be moving on, but I always, if you know me, I always have an open mind and want to do the right thing, and so I appreciate brave people out there. And so, if you can, would love if you like this video. If you know someone that talked, I'm not under the assumption that this is going to be viral or their podcast is going to be viral. But if it happens to be viral and you hear about that, you can share this video with them. And yeah, I appreciate you. Take care.